Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a place that ask almost any wine professional, and they'll tell you is the absolute spiritual home of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. We're talking about Burgundy, or, Bourguignon if we're being French about it. It's this incredible region where wine has been made for literally almost 2,000 years. And the wild part? The identity of the families making it is just inextricably linked to the land itself. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a number that might actually blow your mind a little bit. 3%. Despite having this massive, almost mythical reputation globally, Burgundy produces less than 3% of France's total wine. I mean, think about it. When you think French wine, Burgundy is probably one of the very first names that pops into your head. Yet its actual output? It's kind of a drop in the bucket compared to giants like Bordeaux or the Rhone Valley.
So that leads us to a really fascinating question, right? How exactly does a region making just 3% of France's wine set the absolute global benchmark against which literally all other Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays are judged? Well, the answer, as we're going to see, really lies in understanding the land rather than just the brand. Unlike other famous regions that lean heavily into a producer's brand name or specific blending recipes, Burgundy is entirely 100% defined by place.
So, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the secret of terroir. Then look at the grapes as messengers. Explore the golden escarpment, head down to the warm Mâconnais south, and finally, wrap up by decoding the label.
All right, part 1, the secret of terroir. To really grasp Burgundy today, we've got to look at who actually shaped its earth. So the Romans planted the very first vines way back in the 1st century, sure. But the true game changers? The monks. From the 6th century onward, these monks meticulously mapped out how different slopes varied in quality. And honestly, those boundaries they drew, they remain almost completely untouched today. This history literally mandated excellence. Back in 1395, Duke Philip the Bold straight-up banned the highly productive Gamay grape from the finest slopes. He forced them to cultivate Pinot Noir instead, which was a massive turning point.
So all those centuries of obsessive mapping and observation gave birth to the ultimate Burgundy concept, and you've definitely heard this word, terroir. Terroir is basically the unique combination of natural factors, think soil composition, topography like elevation and drainage, the climate, mixed with human craftsmanship. It's the whole package. And here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. Terroir explains exactly why two neighboring vineyards, planted with the exact same grape, managed the exact same way, can produce remarkably different wines. Just a difference of a few meters can totally rewrite the aroma, the texture, and the aging potential.
Moving on to section 2, the grapes as messengers. So Burgundy relies almost entirely on just two grapes. First, Pinot Noir. It's a thin-skinned, hypersensitive red that makes these incredibly elegant wines. It responds so dramatically to even the slightest soil changes, aging from this fresh, bright cherry into complex, earthy notes of forest floor and truffle. And for the whites, we've got Chardonnay. In Burgundy, Chardonnay acts kind of like a blank canvas. It allows the terroir to just completely mold its character. So it evolves from crisp green apple into these rich hazelnut and struck flint aromas.
Now, unlike Bordeaux, where winemakers are known for blending multiple grape varieties to get that perfect, balanced style, Burgundy, they rarely blend. Because they rely on a single grape variety, the grape itself isn't really the final destination. It's more like a transparent lens. The true star of the show here is always the vineyard itself. Nature is just allowed to step in and provide the harmony.
Which brings us to part 3, the golden escarpment.
The northern half of this famous escarpment is called the Côte de Nuits. This is it, this narrow ribbon of east and south-facing limestone hillsides is the undisputed global kingdom of Pinot Noir. I mean, it's home to 24 of Burgundy's 32 non-Chablis Grand Cru vineyards. The slopes here are steep, they're fractured, the vine roots literally have to drill straight down through cracks in the ancient bedrock just to survive. And you know what? That intense struggle is exactly what yields red wines of such soaring aromatic purity, muscular power, and just profound longevity.
To really prove how crazy this microgeology gets, let's zoom in on one specific Grand Cru vineyard, Mazy-Chambertin. The whole thing is only 9.1 hectares, but it's divided into two totally distinct zones. The higher part, Mazy's Hout, has this thinner topsoil and gets hit by these cooling winds. That creates a wine with high acidity and really tight vertical fruit. But get this, walk just a few meters down the slope to Mazy Bas, where the topsoil deepens and collects rich clay, and suddenly the vines are popping out larger berries. The wine from here has massive density, intense dark fruit concentration, and incredibly firm structured tannins. Same vineyard name, but but an entirely different architecture in the glass.
Now, as we travel just a bit south, past the historic wine capital of Beaune, the sensory landscape shifts entirely. Welcome to the Côte de Beaune. The valleys here get broader. Those hard limestones give way to softer marls and mineral-rich clays. And look, while this area definitely produces some spectacularly graceful red wines in villages like Volnay and Pinot, the Côte de Beaune really achieved its international fame as the source of the world's most complex, multidimensional white wines made from Chardonnay.
And once again, terroir dictates absolutely everything. Let's look at two legendary neighboring white wine villages. Over in Meursault, deep limestone and marl beds produce Chardonnays that are famous for their rich, broad textures, notes of hazelnut, and this really striking, smoky, gunflint finish. But just step over the boundary into Pouligny-Montrachet, and you get the absolute epitome of linear precision. Pouligny whites are chiseled. They're intensely chalky, carrying this laser-focused energy and almost iron-like structure that lets them age beautifully for decades.
All right, moving on to Section 4, the warm Mâconnais South.
So this is the Mâconnais. Down here, the rolling hills start to flatten out into these broad, sun-drenched valleys bordered by striking, really monumental limestone escarpments. The climate actually takes on a noticeably Mediterranean feel. We're talking warmer summer temperatures and a lot more generous sunshine. Because of that extra warmth, the Chardonnay, which makes up over 85% of the plantings down here, by the way, achieves this fantastic ripeness. It essentially trades the strict, laser-focused acidity of the north for a beautifully expressive, rounder, fleshier fruit texture. But importantly, it still maintains that crucial underlying mineral complexity.
Finally, Section 5, decoding the label. So, unlike a lot of other regions that just slap the grape variety right on the front, Burgundy labels focus strictly on geography and classification. The layout actually mirrors a very strict quality pyramid. Down at the base, you have regional wines, like Bourgogne Blanc, which are fantastic for early drinking. Step up a level, and you hit village wines, bearing the name of a specific town like Meursault. Next up is Premier Cru, which lists the village plus a specific exceptional vineyard plot. And then at the absolute pinnacle is Grand Cru. Here, the village name drops off completely. The historic vineyard name, like Le Montrachet, stands completely alone as its own legal title. If you want to instantly understand any bottle, just look for these 5 core pillars. First, who made it, the producer. Second, the geographic boundary, or the appellation. Third, the exact climat, meaning the specific vineyard plot. Fourth, the vintage, and that is critical because weather variations here can be wild. And finally, the cru classification, which tells you exactly where that bottle sits in the historic quality pyramid we just talked about.
Oh, and here is a fantastic piece of French vocabulary you should always look out for on the borders of a label. Mise en bouteille au domaine. Actually, scratch that. Translating it makes it simpler. It just means bottled at the estate. Finding this phrase on a label is basically your absolute guarantee that the exact same producer who owned or leased the land and grew the roots is the exact same one who vinified, aged, and bottled the wine. It represents total end-to-end quality control, from the earth straight to your glass.
Once you master the label, it honestly shifts your entire perspective. You aren't just guessing what's inside a bottle anymore. You're reading a literal blueprint of the vineyard. As the source material so beautifully puts it, Burgundy demonstrates one of the most important lessons in wine. Greatness is achieved not through complexity of ingredients, but through perfection of place. The grape is just the messenger. The label is your map, and the wine? The wine is the ultimate destination. We've seen how centuries of meticulous mapping by monks, those uniquely fractured limestone slopes, and a totally relentless dedication to terroir have created the global benchmark for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. So now that you have the tools to decode the label and truly understand the land it represents, I'll leave you with this. Which parcel of earth do you want to taste first? Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and hey, happy tasting.